Oke, eh, sudah 11.30, mari kita mulai untuk sesi kedua ini mengenai DeFi. Jadi perkenalkan, saya Albi, selaku dari Community Lead dari Utopia Club yang akan kemudian memandu untuk sesi kedua ini sekaligus menjadi moderatornya untuk sesi kedua ini. Jadi pertama-tama kita untuk sesi kedua ini kita khususnya akan membahas mengenai DeFi ya. Kalau tadi teman-teman udah ada yang sempat mendengarkan dari sesi pertama itu kan ada kurang lebih ada penjelasan sedikit gitu ya mengenai DeFi. Di sini kita akan kulik lebih jauh, lebih dalam gitu ya. Kita akan kulik lebih jauh, lebih dalam. Dan kita di sini udah ditemenin oleh dua orang pakar DeFi. Ada Mas Wildan selaku CEO dari Nusa Finance, dan kita juga ada kedatangan Daniel Un sebagai Head of DeFi dari Algorand Foundation, dari Algorand. Gitu. Gila. Ini ada dua pakar DeFi yang mempunyai pengalaman banyak, udah khatam banget di dunia DeFi. Buat teman-teman yang penasaran apa segala, mulai dari sekarang udah nggak apa-apa kalau mau di store untuk Q&A-nya gitu ya. Masukin aja, ntar pas sesi ada Q&A, ntar akan kita jawab pertanyaan-pertanyaannya. Seperti itu. Kurang lebih. Jadi mungkin seperti cerita sedikit ya. Daniel sendiri punya pengalaman bertahun-tahun di dunia DeFi, udah khatam banget. Udah lama di dunia blockchain, udah lalang buana juga, pengalamannya panjang selain dari Algorand, dari sebelumnya dari tempat-tempat yang lain juga gitu. Dan Daniel kemudian sekarang bekerja di Algorand sebagai Head of DeFi. Dia yang kemudian yang mengawasi dan koordinasi tentang DeFi yang ada di dalam Algorand. Kemudian kalau misalnya untuk partnership dengan teman-teman yang tertarik dengan DeFi, khususnya yang pengen explore lebih lanjut kayak dunia non EVM gitu, pengen tahu lebih lanjut ada inovasi-inovasi DeFi apa sih di Algorand, bisa langsung kontak ke Daniel mungkin setelah ini gitu ya. Kemudian untuk Mas Wildan sendiri di sini dari CEO dari Nusa Finance juga pengalamannya banyak banget pastinya. Udah sering kita beberapa kali ngobrol-ngobrol, ternyata wah seru banget ngobrol sama Mas Wildan. Makanya langsung aja kita langsung nggak pakai pikir panjang, langsung kita coba undang Mas Wildan. Kebetulan jadwalnya masih kosong, jadi kita terima kasih banyak Mas Wildan juga udah datang di sini.
Thank
So,
you.
without further ado, start this. Daniel, you want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yeah, happy to do it. So, hi everyone. I'm Daniel Un from the Algorand Foundation. I lead DeFi on the Algorand within the Algorand ecosystem. Very happy to be able to be here to share a little bit more about DeFi, TradFi, and how it merges together at FolksFest. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Daniel, for sharing your introduction. Mas Wildan, silakan.
Yeah.
Sharing introduction.
My name is Wildan. I'm the CEO of Nusa Finance, and thank you for inviting to this event. And I'm very happy to join here. I start the Nusa since the 2020, and it has been 3 years running with Nusa, and I'm happy to share about my experience with you guys.
Oke, terima kasih banyak Mas Wildan. Oke, jadi untuk sesi DeFi hari ini, kita itu akan membahas mengenai DeFi itu merupakan kita anggap sebagai future of finance. Nah, kita pengen cari tahu lebih lanjut dari pakar-pakar di sini, para panelis, apakah memang betul? Kalau memang betul, bagaimana caranya? Apa yang diperbarui, apa yang diperbaiki oleh DeFi? Atau kemudian apa sih permasalahan-permasalahan lain yang ternyata muncul setelah adanya DeFi gitu. So let me start with the first questions to both panelists. So as we know, DeFi itself has been known as the Wild West, especially since we've seen the DeFi summer in the 2020, and then we've seen all the things, all the farming, all the food farms that happens on the blockchain and all that. And basically people printing money out of thin air, people having like a jackpot, like 100x, like a 10x, like even 1000x perhaps, right, during the season. So I would like to ask, from your perspective, both of you guys, from Daniel and Wilden, what do you think that, what's the new innovative thing that occurs natively in DeFi that is not there in the TradFi? Is there any, or there's actually not? Daniel, maybe you want to start?
Yeah. So I would say that like to be very frank, right, digital cash, so for example, like the rupiah, the dollars, etc., I think that that's always looked at like a physical asset. So it's also because, we grew up in an environment where we handed coins, dollar notes, etc. But if you think about it, right, the young people of today, they essentially have all of their money in a bank account. They might or might not have even went to a bank before, right? They might not have a passbook like what we did in the past. For the younger people, they might not even have a debit card, for example. So all they have, right, is essentially an internet banking application on their phone where they could access the funds that's within their accounts, right? So as far as they are concerned, right, the cash, which is the notes that we have in our hands, and the coins that we have in our hands, right, they are actually not that relevant as far as when I'm thinking about assets. So if in their world, the specific, let's say digital rupiah, right, only exists within the digital ecosystem, then that belongs to something that we would say that's online and within DeFi. So once we disassociate the physical aspect of cash, right, and merge it with the digital aspect, that's when I think DeFi kind of like plays an increasing role. It's because, right, if you look at traditional finance, the only thing that they have, right, that they have developed is database and transactions. That means they're able to send from money from one place to another, and they're able to log that transaction. But other than that, right, they actually cannot natively tell you, hey, like where is your money at one point of time. So I think that's where like the advantage of DeFi is. And to kind of like quickly answer the question at the same time, right, I would say that actually a lot of like traditional finance companies within the space, like JP Morgan, Onyx, for example, they have used a lot of open source components developed by DeFi projects, like example like Nusa, for example. So they're always like referencing what the projects have built. Yeah.
Interesting. So the dawn of DeFi, basically, it finally unlocks the true power of having your own assets, your own money. Because previously, like with banks and all that, means that the banks, if they are needed to froze your account by the government, they can froze it. But with the dawn of DeFi, and like you having basically your own money in your own wallet and nobody has an access to that wallet, means that you're the only one that actually controls the wallet, your money basically. Nobody can alter that. Oke, thanks Daniel. Mungkin dari Mas Hilda ada yang mau disampaikan lagi?
Yeah, I agree. In DeFi, we control our money by ourselves. And DeFi also reshaping the traditional financial system. Since 2017, when many DeFi projects started being developed, we have witnessed many groundbreaking projects reshaping traditional financial systems. Some notable example include like Uniswap that introduced the automated market maker models where the users can swap various ERC20 token without need for the traditional order book. And we can also see like a compound decentralized lending platform that allow user to lend and borrow cryptocurrencies. And it also introduced the algorithmic rate interest based on supply and demand. It's also disrupting the traditional lending models. We have a similar project like AAV that also provide features like flash loan, where the user can borrow asset without the collateral in a single transaction. It is opening up a new lending space that disrupt the traditional finance and etc. I mean, I also building a DeFi project called Nusa. Nusa is the first and the only lending and borrowing platform in Indonesia. I'm proud of that. And we develop the possibilities in lending space with a fixed rate interest rate model. And not only the lending market, we also provide various DeFi services from swap, di Nusa ada swap, liquidity provision, farming, staking, airdrop, dan it is our mission to become a one-stop DeFi solution platform. So back again, dari project-project yang saya mention sebelumnya, ini memberikan showcase that the diverse range of innovation that happening within the DeFi sector, from decentralized exchange, lending, dan juga bahkan ada real world asset yang kita bisa trade. Nah, itu semuanya dilakukan dengan smart contract and blockchain. And there is no intermediaries here. So there is no one who can control the transaction, the ecosystem. This is why DeFi collectively contribute to the transformation of traditional finance system by 3 points. The accessibility, which everyone can use financial services as long as they connect to internet, and also to fulfill the parameters that are set in the smart contract. And second, efficiency, because there is no intermediaries. It means we cut some processing step, and a decentralized way, which means it's an open market, open global market that everyone has the same chance. Jadi itu tiga poin DeFi yang merubah traditional finance adalah aksesibilitasnya, efisiensinya, dan kontrolnya, decentralized-nya.
Oke, mantap. Terima kasih banyak ke Mas Wildan. Jadi, menurut Mas Wildan, tadi ada 3 poin penting ya, yang mengenai dari DeFi yang kemudian muncul dari dunia DeFi dan tidak ada di dunia traditional finance itu. Yang pertama adalah perkara efisiensi ya, karena tidak ada namanya middleman, nggak perlu kita terpaku sama middleman, kita udah bisa melakukannya karena semuanya udah automated by smart contract gitu ya. Terus kemudian yang hal lainnya adalah perkara aksesibilitas, bahwa DeFi ini kita tidak perlu misalnya buka account bank apa segala, enggak, kita udah bisa akses semua dari HP, dari laptop kita sendiri, itu udah bisa akses untuk segala fitur-fitur keuangan atau fitur-fitur semua, atau misalnya di dunia finance gitu. Dan yang terakhir adalah perkara desentralisasi, bahwa ya balik lagi tadi sesuai yang diutarakan oleh Daniel, bahwa tidak ada yang punya akses terhadap duit tersebut selain dari Anda sendiri. Okay. Before we go to the second questions, I would like to give a shout out for our sponsors. There's Toko Crypto. It's an exchange over here in Indonesia, one of the biggest exchange, and they also just launched a new feature called Instant Trade, where basically you can instantly trade whatever tokens that are available on Toko Crypto instantly without having to to figure out, let's say, the price and all that. You can just do it instantly. And also shout out to BitGet, our sponsors. BitGet is also actually having a giveaway right now. So buat teman-teman di sini yang pengen ke Korea, ya kan, itu bisa dibayarin sama BitGet. Jadi teman-teman tinggal screenshot misalnya di sini, terus kemudian share di Instagram untuk teman-teman ceritakan apa sih keseruan apa aja yang kalian pelajarin di FolksFest hari ini. Kemudian tag akun-akun yang ada di link di FolksFest, dari BitGet, Indonesia, dan semuanya yang terlibat. Nanti orang-orang yang beruntung akan mendapatkan tiket gratis pulang pergi dari Jakarta ke Seoul. Dan buat yang tidak dapat tiket, tenang aja, akan ada hadiah-hadiah lain seperti 10 USDT untuk 10 orang pemenang lainnya. Okay, let's get to the second questions. So, okay, like we know that basically DeFi has introduced us to a whole new dimension that was previously unavailable due to all of the things that you guys were talking about, right? So the next question that I would like to ask, okay, if DeFi is actually like so good, what are the issues that DeFi is actually facing right now? And how do the DeFi folks trying to tackle those issues? Mungkin dari Mas Wildan duluan.
Sorry, di sini aku lagi azan jadi agak nggak terlalu kedengeran.
Oh iya, jadi kan
agak nge-lag ya aku di sini. Lagi azan soalnya sama nggak tahu kenapa kalau lagi azan ya koneksinya agak keganggu gitu.
Oke, nggak masalah kalau gitu kita coba. We'll start with Daniel first.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, from my end, I would say that like essentially there's a couple of things that DeFi cannot actually tackle from the get-go. So one would be housing mortgages. So when you're trying to buy a house, right? I'm pretty sure it's also the same in Indonesia, where you're kind of like you have to take a loan from the bank at 20, 25 years or 30 years of your income, essentially. And this is something that DeFi cannot natively replace, because the physical asset exists within the physical world. So you can't actually say that, hey, like we'll send lawyers from the US to enforce something that's Indonesian law, for example. So I think on top of, on that, they will have a lot of trouble. And another thing is that mortgages have much bigger loans, loan quantum versus the deposit that they put down. So for example, you might put down like $10,000 and then the remaining part of your mortgage is 190,000, which means that you really need like a well-capitalized and much larger entity in order to fulfill this specific purpose. So I think that's where the disruption cannot be found. But as far as where disruptions can be found, right, I think that will be smart contract automation, because like what Wilden was saying, right, in terms of like flash loans and more complicated transactions, I think that's where like the possibilities are essentially limitless. Like you could essentially do more, for example, on like Nusa Finance or like Aave, for example, than any bank. Like you could go to a bank, right, and then the counter could tell you like, oh, it's lunchtime. I'm gonna go. You take a number and wait, and then nobody serves you for the next 30 minutes. So things like that is actually not really acceptable for a lot of digital only users nowadays, and I think that will get increasingly trickier for the banks to try to turn around. And like where I'm residing right now in Singapore, there's actually a trend where more and more users are actually using online banking / internet banking, so much so that in the past, right, the banking system and the online apps will never go down. But now, right, almost every other day there's like a 5-hour maintenance at night, and it's kind of unacceptable, to be very frank, as far as the user is concerned. So yeah.
I see. So basically, like due to the digitalization and all that, where previously people were going actually to the bank directly, to the teller office, like, hey, I want to withdraw money, or like, I want to transfer this amount of money to another party and all that. But now due to the adoption of digitalization, means that everybody can actually do that from their own wallet. It's improving, and it helps DeFi. But then even the digitalization itself has a lot of drawbacks, meaning that because there's so many requests called like calls through the apps and all that, it makes the apps itself go down. Meanwhile, with DeFi, everything's on the blockchain and it runs perpetually. Basically, it doesn't stop. You don't need like there's no lunch hour for the teller. So like you can do it anytime you want. Like you can do like at 3 in the morning. You can do it let's say like at 12 in the evening and all that, and everything runs smoothly and fine. Okay, thanks Indo. Mungkin dari Mas Wildan ada yang mau tambahkan?
Yeah, I'm live again. Udah benar sekarang jaringan.
Oke,
Private
mantap.
declaration again.
Selamat datang balik. Ya, iya. Jadi kan tadi kita lihat ya bahwa DeFi ini ternyata banyak fitur-fitur yang native langsung baru muncul di DeFi itu, yang kemudian teman-teman atau misalnya kita semua di sini tuh nggak sadari itu ada atau bisa ada sebenarnya gitu kan di dunia finance tradisional gitu. Nah, tapi dari sekian banyak fitur-fitur yang menarik gitu ya, atau misalnya yang bisa menyelesaikan masalah, ada nggak sih permasalahan-permasalahan yang akhirnya muncul sendiri karena adanya fitur-fitur ini di DeFi, dan kemudian kalau misalnya ada permasalahan-permasalahan ini, kira-kira buat teman-teman yang lahir dari dunia DeFi gitu, gimana cara solvingnya?
Okay, the problem that's come up because of the DeFi itself, gitu.
Iya, betul. Kurang
Yeah,
lebih.
based on my experience, one of the challenges in Web3 is about the UI and UX, because it's not easy for people that already familiar with the Web2 base to convert into the Web3. Karena kalau di Web3 kita nggak segampang di Web2 yang hanya username password and then you can follow the instruction. Tapi kita kan juga ada di Web3 ini harus ada bikin walletnya dulu, and then transaction kita harus approve, terus habis itu siapin gas fee dan lain-lain. Ini yang menjadi challenges, dan itu yang memang menjadi suatu keharusan untuk digunakan di dalam Web3 kan. Emang itu harus kita lakukan untuk bisa enter the DeFi and Web3 world. And in the future, I believe there's a lot of project that focusing on how to solve the UI and UX, make the people can use Web3 easier. So basically kita on the track to that point.
Oke, Mantap. Berarti memang perkara UI UX ya, itu memang yang ya saya juga sebagai penikmat, sebagai pelaksana juga pelaku DeFi juga memang betul. Itu saya mengakui
And
betul.
one more thing I forgot.
Oh, silakan.
Yeah, DeFi is fundamentally rely on the smart contract, but smart contract basically is consists of computer code, which mean that normal people, which is not a developer, cannot understand the computer code. Developer can say, if you sign this contract, you can lend an asset to someone, but basically it's just a computer code. So people yang nggak ngerti programming, dia nggak akan tahu apakah ini the smart contract is really accurate, seperti yang dijanjikan developer gitu kan. Karena di smart contract it is not written after reaching $100 the transaction will be executed gitu. Itu nggak akan literally written in that sentence gitu, but it's in a computer code. So itu adalah salah satu problem yang juga ada di DeFi.
I see. Jadi bahwa dengan meskipun adanya si smart contract ini, dia membantu banyak orang gitu ya, karena tidak ada intermediaries, tapi melalui dia doang gitu kan. Basically, kalian semua nggak perlu percaya sama tellernya atau banknya, percaya sama smart contract aja itu bisa. Tapi di satu sisi, itu juga berarti ya kalian menyerahkan segalanya ke tangan si smart contract ini ya. Yang mana berarti kalau smart contract ternyata ada masalah, ternyata dalam pembuatannya, atau misalnya ada apa segala potensi-potensi exploit, itu kemudian bisa menjadi sumber masalah juga. Seperti itu ya Mas Wildan ya?
Yes, that's why we need an auditor or a government that can validate the smart contract. This is the correct and the true what is intended to be.
I see, oke. Berarti memang ada peran penting ya, dibutuhkan sebuah auditor. Berarti buat teman-teman semua di sini yang mungkin paham coding, bisa baca, terus kemudian tertarik untuk jadi auditor, bisa banget nih guys. Kesempatannya masih terbuka luas di dunia DeFi, dan nggak cuma di DeFi, sebenarnya di Web3 secara umum ya. Oke. Going back to regarding the DeFi thing. So like we understand all the implications, like the good and bad potential of DeFi is that DeFi has compared to the traditional finance. I'm going to ask a question. Is there any existing traditional finance business model that's being threatened by DeFi? Mungkin Mas Wildan mau
Yeah. Based on my previous example, the business model that connected to the lending and liquidity management may face higher disruption risks, I think. Because we have proven that we don't need a bank or intermediaries in the lending business flow, like AFE and Compound did, and also. And yeah, I think that's the two sectors that may have a higher risk. I don't know, maybe Daniel have some another example.
Oke, berarti kalau dari Mas Wildan tadi ya si di dunia lending ya, gitu, pinjam meminjam apa segala, berarti kurang lebih bank ya, karena di DeFi ada smart contract, jadi overhead mungkin lebih murah gitu ya, kita nggak perlu bayar gaji teller gitu, karena kita udah punya smart contract apa segala, udah bisa running 24 jam juga segala, jadi overhead lebih rendah, interest rate bisa ditekan juga apa segala, dan bisa akses langsung liquidity global gitu ya. Oke. Daniel, you want to add something perhaps?
Yeah, I would say that I second what Wilden is saying, like in terms of lending, right? I think that's where the disruption is the biggest. It's also because where lending has already been tested through the 3AC, you know, through FTX crashing. So it's actually very, very robust. And that's where like people will be okay with kind of like borrowing on that. And lending has been doing a lot of improvements, I must say. Like in the past, you couldn't take like fixed APY loans, but now you can. So that was one of the biggest criticism of like lending, right? But now it's like essentially you can just take a loan already. So I'd say that lending is the biggest disruptor. The second thing that I would say is a disruptor is essentially how people are doing payments. So how you are sending your money from one person to the other. I think that part is actually really, really cool and really important, because let's say I visited like Jakarta, right? And then let's say Wilden brought me out for lunch or something, right? And then I have to pay my share of the bill. So I go back to Singapore. I don't have a good way of paying Wilden. But right now, right, I know that if I send Wilden, for example, an IDR stable coin or USDC, I know that that's gonna be like the easiest and the fastest way. And we could do it in 5 seconds versus finding some other iBanking method, internet banking method to try to send the money, where there's a lot of restrictions, takes a lot of time. So I think that's where like the second advantage is like the blockchain and the finality, the 4-5 seconds it takes versus because if you were to use a fintech solution like TransferWise or something, they could hold your money up to like 24 hours also. So that wouldn't really be like that efficient for payments between each other. And then I would say between both lending and payments, like the disruption is already pretty big because these are like fundamental business models of the financial institutions actually. So this is why you also see they kind of like rush in to try to participate in this ecosystem. Yeah.
I see. Okay, so Daniel has an interesting point, basically like remittance, right, or transferring money. With blockchain and DeFi, you can easily transfer money to, let's say you have relatives, let's say living in US and you're right now living in Jakarta, Indonesia, you can send money to them like directly, like instantly, like let's say like next like 5 seconds, 13 seconds, 30 seconds or whatever. It doesn't need to take like if you go to let's say like a Western Union or something, it takes like 2 days, 1 day, maybe a week or something. Doing KYC and all that, you can transfer it directly. Okay, so one point that I would like to note is that both of you guys mentioned lending, right? So as a following question regarding that, what I'd like to ask regarding the liquidity problem, because basically lending and all that, it all depends on liquidity, and it's basically liquidity management and all that. And as of now, we've seen that the lending market is very, very big, and it's basically the main driver of the traditional finance. And it can happen due to that there's so much liquidity that's already there in Web2, right? And Web3 on the other side, even though they already offer all these amazing advantages compared to the Web2, what are the things, let's say in terms of liquidity, how can it be better in the Web3 side? Because Web3, it's only a fraction of the Web2 finance market, right? It has all these advantages, but the liquidity side, it's not that big yet. Or like the liquidity itself is like the fraction. Like there's issue, say like you want to swap a token, let's say like from USDC to USDT, or say like a stablecoin swap. It's the spread itself, or like the fees and whatnot, is way cheaper like doing it in Texas rather than in Dexes. Same thing with the let's say like borrowing money. Like it's still maybe more cheaper or like more easier to do that. Let's say like in Binance or like Toho Crypto or like Indodax or like OKX rather than going to like Aave or like going to Nusa or like going to Compound and all that. Who want to start first? Maybe Wilden.
Okay, if I'm not understand it mistakenly, so your question is about people still using the Web2 based lending protocol for the easier way to borrow money, right?
Lebih ke permasalahan likuiditas, Mas. Jadi kalau kita tahu bahwa di Web2 itu kan likuiditas tuh banyak gitu kan, dan di Web3 saat ini meskipun memang udah banyak keunggulan-keunggulan ditawarkan, tapi likuiditas di Web3 kan masih kecil gitu. Kayak ada nggak cara-cara untuk kemudian dari teman-teman Web3 untuk lebih memaksimalkan atau kemudian mengundang lebih banyak likuiditas yang untuk masuk ke dunia Web3 gitu?
Ya, di Web3 sebenarnya likuiditas sudah cukup besar, tapi memang it's segmented in the borrow and lend in a cryptocurrency. Only cryptocurrency. You collateralize crypto to borrow crypto. And the market is limited. But I saw more project that building and developing innovation that can connect the real world asset into crypto, so tokenization sebenarnya. Dan kalau misal hal itu bisa masuk, ini akan membuat market yang lebih besar lagi. it will invite more people to use the DeFi, because sekarang limitasinya adalah yang bisa di-borrow, di-compound, di AV, it's crypto to crypto. Collateralize, jaminkan crypto, and then you borrow crypto. But there is no real world asset that that can be collateralized. Imagine if in the 5 or 10 years later, you can collateralize your property. Your property will be tokenized, and then with the tokenization you can borrow crypto. So it will akan menarik banyak liquidity masuk karena udah real world asset yang masuk ke dalam blockchain. So I think this is an interesting sector that will boost lending market also, and for the DeFi whole ecosystem.
Oke, berarti kalau dari Mas Wildan kuncinya adalah tadi jawabannya salah satunya adalah di real world asset ya.
Yes.
Tokenasi real world asset itu pastinya akan mengundang lebih banyak liquidity untuk masuk ke dunia Web3.
Ya.
Oke.
Yang sekarang berjalan masih limitasi, soalnya masih limitasi crypto token yang punya value. Tapi nanti ke depannya ada mulai banyak yang menuju ke sana untuk development-nya, dan itu akan menarik sekali sih. Saya bisa bilang DeFi 2.0 mungkin ya, 2.0, 3.0.
Seru. Ya, kita tunggu ya untuk itu kemudian lebih matang lagi. Oke, Daniel, you want a piece of insight perhaps?
Correct. So I will take kind of like the other side, and just to build on Wilden's point, the crypto to crypto is definitely the limitation. There's also another limitation actually, which is that the DeFi world, right, does not have enough real yield connected to it. So a good example, I'm sure both of you have noticed, is when the US Federal Reserve interest rates are at around 4%, RV rates were still at 1%. So it simply told us, right, working in DeFi, that the interest rates were not really connected, because it can't be that when the US is at 4%, DeFi is at 1%, right? We are not that cheap if you think about it. We are actually more expensive. So what real world assets can do for us, which is a sub industry that we didn't develop as much in the bull market, is that the use from the real world did not have to come in, because during the crypto bull market, right, the returns and the yields that people were earning was so much more than the 4 or 7% that they could earn from real world assets. But when the bear market came, those were the highest amount of yield people could earn. So the real assets started building and started developing. A project that I want to mention would be, it's this stablecoin called Ondo, ONDO, built out of New York actually. And they're actually a yielding stablecoin, meaning that they buy US treasuries, and then those US treasuries make up the component backing the stablecoin, which means that it could keep paying like a yield, paying into itself essentially. And it's built out of New York. So I thought that one was pretty interesting, because if the liquidity issue, right, it's actually not the DEX's problem. Because if you think about it, right, the DEXs are there to provide a service, but it's given to the DEXs, right, because the DEXs hold the liquidity. So in a perfect world, right, what we need to do is we need to build out the real world assets yield curve within the blockchain, right? We have all of these assets coming in, for example, property, we have yielding stable coins, etc. And then the users themselves, or the people the LPers themselves, will go to a DEX, and then they will essentially plunk in those yielding assets together with whatever token or whatever coin that they want to pair it with. So in that scenario, right, our ecosystem, our DeFi ecosystem, will be on par with the real world, essentially. And that will actually solve the liquidity issue, because for the better part of 2022 to early this year, DeFi did not have any yield, which means that if you're holding on to USDC or any other stable coin, you had to get out. You had to withdraw your money back into rupiahs and then put it into a fixed deposit, right? So I would say that we were at the negative point. Now we are like comparable, and then in the future, I believe we will deliver a much better experience for you, so that the liquidity can be built up over time. Yeah.
I see. Daniel has an interesting point regarding real world assets. Like what Ondo is doing, basically, like previously, sebelumnya kita stablecoin tuh punya USDC atau USDT misalnya gitu ya, terus ya udah kita pegang, kita nggak dapat apa-apa. Tapi dengan Ondo ternyata di belakangnya dia tokenized T-bills gitu ya, atau US bonds, obligasinya Amerika Serikat. Jadi dan dia kemudian sharing ke semua pemegang holders atau holdersnya dari stablecoinnya Ondo bahwa kayak, hey guys, if you guys are using Ondo finance or stablecoins, you guys can get percentage of the yield as well. Interesting. Okay, I'll start opening up the Q&A after this. So just a short ad-libs from our partners. Jadi buat teman-teman semua di sini yang dengerin, ada dari MySkill. MySkill itu kemudian dia sebuah platform gitu yang mengajarkan atau menyediakan sekian banyak course atau misalnya kursus-kursus buat teman-teman semua yang ingin menambah ilmu. Teman-teman dari MySkill udah berbaik hati membagikan sebuah kupon code ya, teman-teman bisa cek di chat di sini, ada kupon code-nya itu FolksFest ya, FOLKFEST. Itu di huruf kapital semua. Kalau teman-teman ingin mendaftar ke MySkill dengan kupon code FolksFest sampai akhir November ini, teman-teman akan mendapatkan diskon sebesar 50%. Gitu ya guys. Oke, so I'm gonna start answering the questions that already been submitted. Jadi untuk pertanyaan pertama, ini dua-duanya anonymous ya. Yang pertama adalah DeFi seringkali bersandar kepada liquidity pool sama DEX. Bisa nggak teman-teman di sini ceritakan seberapa resiliency, seberapa tahan banting liquidity pool dan decentralize ini? Ketika momen-momen yang kita tahu pasar finansial, finance market itu kan banyak black swan event, let's say, atau misalnya banyak sudden drops and all that. Banyaklah momen-momen atau event-event yang tidak kita bayangkan tiba-tiba terjadi, gitu kan. Nah, apakah liquidity pool dan decentralized exchange yang ditawarkan oleh DeFi ini bisa kemudian menjadi solusi terhadap momen-momen tersebut atau enggak juga, atau gimana menurut pendapat teman-teman sini? Gitu. Wildan, maybe you wanna go first or Daniel?
Ya, untuk liquidity pool sama DEX sendiri, sistem yang dibangun ini kan sebenarnya tentang ini ya, kalau misal ada sesuatu hal yang apa namanya yang mendadak gitu ya, shock market gitu. Kalau dari saya sendiri sih melihat kalau DeFi ini lebih aman ya, tapi nggak semua DeFi itu aman. Maksudnya adalah ya balik lagi kepada poolnya sendiri. Poolnya itu tebel apa enggak. Kalau misalkan poolnya itu likuiditasnya sedikit ya, tetap ada resiko terhadap likuiditasnya. Tapi dibandingkan dengan Web2, karena ini decentralize gitu ya, jadi menurut saya lebih resisten lah kalau ada hal-hal semacam itu.
Oke, menarik. Berarti balik lagi tergantung ke perkara likuiditas ya, gitu ya,
Yeah.
Mas Wildan ya. Oke, Daniel?
Yes. So I will start by saying that during the 3AC FTX event, right? I think we had like a 60% end-to-end 60% drawdown in terms of crypto prices from the very top. I think that's already one of the biggest tests for DeFi in general, because when you have such a big drawdown, right? Essentially, if you think about it, 100% it drops to 40%. Anybody that was anything more than 1.8x, that means above 2x, who have essentially been liquidated, which means that all of the DeFi applications on any blockchain, right, will essentially just be processing the transactions to liquidate users or to kind of like move the DeFi financial system so that it kind of like functions well. So I think that's one of the biggest tests. And to be very frank, I would say that like as far as resilience is concerned, I think we are more afraid of the, like the smart contract exploits, the smaller things versus the larger things. Because, for example, right, DeFi is built on lending, and lending is over collateralized. So if we were to net off everything, right, there is no way we would be negative. But it's only when people try to build things on top of lending and on top of the DEXs, then we have kind of like build-ups of like weaknesses, etc. So I think that the basis of DeFi is very robust, and then when you kind of build up, right, it becomes more like it becomes less strong essentially. And we also face the same issue within the traditional financial system.
Okay, interesting. So basically, like if it's so the Nexus and Lightning itself, it's already good, but like when people start building on top of it itself, then yeah, it's becoming way more risky and all that. Okay, that's an interesting point. Regarding the question itself, I think I want to add my own answers with this, if I may. Okay, uh, for me myself, like I was there when Luna happens. I was there when Luna happens. I've seen like the Spider-Man down with Luna and all that, the ESD and all that. And for me, one of the resilient part with DeFi compared to the TradFi is that when things happen like Luna, right? If you go to Binance at that time, there was a moment where everything was spiraling out of control, and Binance have to halt trades in order to make it a little bit controllable and all that. But in essence, it makes people are not able to go out of Luna if they want to change, like swap Luna to other tokens and all that, to like the risk themselves. They cannot do that to like the traditional finance file. Like if kayak mungkin tuh ya teman-teman bisa lihat di sini kayak misalnya di pasar saham gitu ya, kayak pasar saham itu kan cuman ada jam tradingnya gitu ya. Kalau di Indonesia itu jam 9 pagi selesai jam setengah 4 sore gitu kalau nggak salah. Dalam aku ngapain saham. Di situ kan berarti ketika misalnya ada something happen setelah jam trading, kita nggak bisa ngapa-ngapain. Kita cuma bisa nunggu ketika trading hours-nya open lagi, baru kita bisa lakuin something gitu kan. But di DeFi, through DEXs and all that, when Luna happens, we can still exit everything on-chainly. Kayak melalui smart contract yang runs perpetually forever basically selama blockchain itu berjalan nih, kita mau exit dari Luna ya pakai DEXs itu bisa. Kayak kita bisa langsung aja tukar saat itu meskipun memang rate-nya jatuh segala, tapi kita masih bisa dibanding kita berpasrah menunggu ke ya centralized stuff lah kayak gitu. Okay, let's go to the second questions. What are the key considerations for individuals and organizations looking to invest or participate in the DeFi ecosystem? Gimana caranya untuk orang bisa dengan mudah berpartisipasi atau ikutan di DeFi? Terus kita pasti tahu dong, dari DeFi namanya finance pasti ada risiko. How can they mitigate or like reduce the risk? Like how they can manage the risk better? Daniel, maybe you want to start?
Yep. So I will just say that like essentially when we talk about deployments of capital into any vehicles, right? I think that one is tricky because it's up to the actual mandate of who is trying to deploy. So for individuals, it's much easier, right? You can make your own decision. But for organizations, for example, some pension funds globally, right? They have a mandate where the fund manager has to, for example, participate only in safe investments. So in this case, like DeFi ecosystem investments is not that safe. Like you cannot actually quantify the risk. That's why you cannot say that it's safe. Okay. So, but I think that over time, the analysts will build up the capability and then they will know what's actually happening within the space. The exposure to the DeFi ecosystem, I believe, it's what a lot of individuals/organizations want. They see something being built. They see something being built by Wilden. That's great. No, Wilden and his friends. And they believe that, hey, this could be something that's part of the future. This is why they want exposure. So if let's say an organization is trying to look for, trying to enter this scene, right? What I could only advise them is, hey, like there are things that it's always going to be known unknowns. That means you know that you do not know. For example, AI, for example, DeFi, right? Okay, there are always going to be specialists and subject matter experts around, but you probably might not have access to them. So you have to treat it as a known unknown, treat it as an edge case. And if you're deploying your portfolio into this, it's something future forward, right? So I always like to think of deploying capital into DeFi, NFTs or blockchain as if it was something that's looking towards the future. And then there's always going to be another bunch of organizations that look towards the past. If you look towards the past, right, it's something like investing in like Coca-Cola or something. People drink it. Your dad drink it, your grandfather drank it, and so I'm drinking it, and my children will drink it. But that is something that you're looking to the past. You never know if your kid, right, is only wanting to drink water, because that could be something that's cool and it could take trend continuously in the future. You never know. So as far as DeFi is concerned, DeFi is future looking, and it's not actually backward looking. So I would say that it has to enter into your kind of like take on the risk kind of like mindset. Yeah.
Okay, interesting point. So Dana mentioned basically the DeFi it's always gonna be risky as of now, and because it's forward looking, kita ngeliat ke depan gitu, kita nggak bisa membandingkannya dengan hal yang udah terjadi di belakang, atau kita nggak bisa ngebandinginnya atau kita nge-benchmark ini dengan traditional finance, karena traditional finance has been going on for quite some time already dan udah terbukti apa segala kita. Contohnya misalnya Coca-Cola, kita bisa ngeliat kayak dari sekian puluh tahun lalu orang udah minum Coca-Cola, tapi ya dengan DeFi kita nggak bisa gitu karena DeFi hal yang baru dan DeFi ini forward looking.
Yeah. By the way, I wanted to add that the current financial system, right, is actually also a new innovation. So it was only created by Keynesian economists around 1940s. Yep. So it's not actually that safe, to be very frank. So like if let's say you were to read up on your history, for example, you can access probably 3,000 years of like history in general. And this thing was only created in 1940s by John Maynard Keynes.
Yeah.
So if you think that this is very safe, I would say that no, it's not that safe. Okay.
Okay. I'll get back to that. Wildan, Mas Wildan mungkin ada yang mau ditambahkan?
Okay, I will comment in the key consideration for the individual that want to invest in DeFi ecosystem. The first thing is we have to decide what our goal. I mean, you want to invest in the platform. I mean, using the DeFi platform, karena platform DeFi itu kan menyediakan layanan financial services, ya untuk lending atau untuk insurance atau staking, etc. Atau goalsnya invest in their token gitu, karena ya platform DeFi biasanya issues their own token that have some special utilities in their platform to boost. You have this perk, you have this privilege on the platform kan. Jadi goalsnya tuh harus tahu invest in the platform or invest in the token. If you want to invest in the platform, which means you using the platform, the first you have to consider is, do you know how to exactly use the platform? I mean, bisa nggak nih kamu ngegunain lendingnya? Tahu nggak resikonya apa? Tahu nggak potensinya apa? Caranya bagaimana? That is yang harus kalian pertama. Jadi knowledge tentang DeFi platform yang harus diketahui. But if you invest in the DeFi tokens, what you need to know is what the utilities of the tokens. I mean, biasanya DeFi ngeluarin token itu untuk privilege atau utilitas tambahan yang bisa digunakan di platformnya untuk mendukung platformnya gitu. Kalau misalkan beli token karena tahu, misalnya di Cake itu ya, biasanya kalau if someone buy Cake and you stake the Cake token in their platform, you can get a 2x, 4x multiplier. Nah, kalau beli Cake invest itu untuk utilitas itu, then you have the right goals to buy the invest in the DeFi tokens gitu. Tapi kalau misalnya nggak digunain untuk apa-apa ya sayang, karena pada basicnya adalah DeFi tokens itu untuk mendukung platformnya kayak gitu. Jadi itu konsiderasi pertama yang harus diperhatikan oleh users, the goals investing in the DeFi, in the platform or in the tokens.
Oke, menarik. Berarti kalau menurut Mas Wildan, ada dua hal yang penting yang teman-teman mesti ketahui kalau main sendiri di DeFi ya. Pertama adalah kalau atau misalnya mau invest di DeFi ya. Yang pertama itu adalah apakah teman-teman pengen invest di platformnya, atau yang kedua adalah teman-teman pengen invest atau membeli token dari platform tersebut. Yang pertama itu akan bertumbuh dengan yang semakin banyak digunakan platformnya apa segala, dan yang kedua adalah ya udah kita invest karena token tersebut mempunyai utility atau mempunyai benefit-benefit dari yang diberikan platform tersebut, yang dimana token tersebut juga dibuat untuk memberikan insentif kepada para pengguna untuk menggunakan platform tersebut. Okay, we're going to like the last two questions right now. First one is that I want to ask like your opinion. Jadi gini kan, we know that DeFi itself is something that is built to fix all the mishaps, all the wrongdoings of the traditional finance. That's the ultimate goal, like the grand thing about DeFi, right? But then, as we know, that finance itself, as Daniel just mentioned, it's not something that's actually very, very old. It's quite recent compared to the history of Earth, the civilization, and all that. Bahkan kayak it's just started like what 1935 or so, around that time, right? So I want to ask, like, if we're building something to fix that, isn't it means that we are looking at it from the point of like a wrong thing already because it's a wrong thing? Like, is it, can it work, or are we supposed to like perhaps try or build a new one that doesn't which we don't reflect from the old one, like that? Daniel, perhaps?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start by saying that I have never believed for one day that DeFi can take over traditional finance.
Okay.
And that's my own point of view. That it's really because, right, I believe that finance and financial engineering is traditionally exists, right, to expand off on itself. What I mean by that is you used to have like coins, right? You exchange with each other, and then before that you have seashells or something, right? And then after that you start to have cash notes, right? And then you have like loans became mortgages became derivatives, and then you have options, you have loans that's extended 100x to other parties and counterparty risk, etc. I think this is not going to stop. So what I mean by that is DeFi is many things to many people. So for example, if you were unbanked by the banking system, it's your alternative. If you don't have a mortgage, you are going to go back to the banking system and take a mortgage from the banking system to buy a house. Then it becomes a parallel financial system, right? And then if you are essentially, for example, like a quant coming from one of the largest banks in Indonesia, then you will look at DeFi as if it was a new battleground for you to expand your business into. So it's the same thing, but it's many things to many people. And I think that that's where it gets really interesting. I always like to remind people, right, that there is this one place that a lot of people rely on globally for new ideas and new innovation. It's actually Silicon Valley. So San Francisco's and the Silicon Valley area really became not because of whatever happened during the dot-com era, but it happened like many years before when there was a gold rush, when there was speculation in that area. Otherwise, that place will never be what it is today. Speculation is essentially, right, the main reason as to how a hobby can become an industry. So especially when you're an emerging industry. So from there, right, then you will be able to finance a lot of like innovation and a lot of new things. Then you could kind of like move on. So as far as a replacement is concerned, I think that's slightly trickier. But there will be a day where DeFi has all of the facilities that CeFi/TradFi has, and then the user, it could be essentially up to the user to choose actually. So I think that's where I'll stop.
Okay, interesting. Dari Daniel baru mention bahwa jadi basically memang DeFi itu bukan sebenarnya untuk replace, tapi mungkin untuk melengkapi atau untuk meleverage dari finance yang udah kita punya sekarang dengan segala macam permasalahannya. DeFi bisa membantu men-solve, tapi bukan berarti akan replace 100%. Nah, balik lagi ya, sama seperti dunia finance ya, setiap orang bisa melihat dunia finance tergantung dari point of view-nya mereka, perspektifnya mereka masing-masing, dan itu berbeda-beda. Silakan Mas Wildan.
In Indonesia, we have something like ada rezekinya masing-masing. Gitu. ada marketnya masing-masing. I mean ya, people can have a several option. I mean, you can choose a fully decentralized or a half decentralized or just centralized, and every sector have their own people that wants to invest in them. But with this many option, it makes the financial ecosystem is stronger. And to be in my opinion, di Web3 juga kita masih experimental phase lah. Masih banyak yang bisa dikembangkan, masih banyak yang inilah yang menjadi menarik, masih banyak potensi yang bisa dikembangkan, and akan semakin banyak opsi that will serve to the people, and people can choose whatever it is they prefer.
Oke, dari Mas Wildan kemarin menekankan bahwa dunia DeFi itu banyak banget hal yang masih bisa dikembangkan, masih banyak hal-hal lain yang akan dikembangkan, akan diciptakan, akan ditemukan, yang kemudian bisa membantu menyelesaikan masalah-masalah yang ada di traditional finance sekarang. Oke, before we go to the, there's a question that pops up. Okay, I need to mention to all of you guys that are attending this event, like we're having a digital certificate. It's already there in the chat. You can download the wallet from there, and then you can go to the first link and then see how to claim it. And there's a link, the second link was where you go to claim the token itself. Okay, before you answers the Q&A again, I'll add another question from me. So as we know, traditional finance is heavily regulated because we can say, a certain amount of us would say that it's basically the cornerstone of civilization right now. It affects tons of things and all that. And the multiplier effect is very, very big. Now, knowing that traditional finance is being heavily regulated, how does regulations translate into DeFi? Like, does it work? Like, can they regulate DeFi, or like, will DeFi need to be regulated, or like it's already decentralized, so it's not meant to be regulated, and so on? Like, any opinions from both of you guys?
Who first? Daniel?
Silakan, Mas Wildan.
Okay. First, I think I don't believe regulating on the DeFi protocol level will be effective because of what? Because DeFi is a global market. So what the first thing that, in my opinion, what we should do is first is we have to have a international collaboration. Government and regulatory bodies may need to collaborate internationally to develop a framework for overseeing decentralized finance. And they have to develop a regulation that understand and adapt to the dynamic nature of DeFi without prevent the innovation. And this is crucial. So in my opinion, the best way to regulate DeFi is to regulate the gateway from fiat to crypto. I mean, if user want to enter the DeFi, they have to buy a crypto first with fiat, right? In the exchanges or on-ramp, off-ramp services. So the government, if they want to regulate the DeFi, they regulate the business that provide the services from the business that provide on-ramp and off-ramp fiat to crypto, or crypto back to fiat. Because I don't believe regulating in the DeFi level is effective. But for the, if necessary at the DeFi, it is in the smart contract level. Like I said before, how ensure the code is accurately reflects what its intended meaning. Lending contract should be written as lending contract. We don't want our asset unexpectedly taken by that person, right?
Yep, interesting. Jadi menurut Mas Wildan ya, yang penting adalah regulatory-nya itu di pintu masuknya ya, pintu masuk ke dunia DeFi, basically ya di on-ramp off-ramp, kurang lebih kayak gitu ya Mas Wildan ya.
Ya di exchanges baik, yang berhubungan dari rupiah sama
dari fiat ke token gitu ya.
Kripto ke rupiah, itu aja yang di-regulate karena susah untuk regulate DeFi yang global gitu kan. Yang intinya kita misalkan deposit 1 juta gitu ya, terus habis itu kita mainlah di DeFi segala macam, balik 5 juta. Nah, balik 5 juta ininya eventually akan ke rupiah juga kan, jadi dimonitornya di situ aja. Itu yang lebih efektif sih dibanding the whole DeFi kita regulate. It will be complicated and I don't believe it is possible.
Okay, so regulations at the on-ramp and off-ramp section. Okay, Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to add on what Wilden said, I would say that like actually, right, I don't know if you all have noticed, but for the criminals, the number 1 criminals, number 2 criminals in crypto, regulators, not like regulators, sorry, the prosecution, right, always utilizes existing laws already. So for example, right, if someone is cheating another person of his Bitcoin, for example, right, then that's essentially wire fraud. They will charge him with wire fraud. So what I'm trying to say is that existing laws, right, are already robust enough. It's just that the regulators, right, needs to sit down and actually start recognizing assets. So for example, in Indonesia, right, cryptocurrencies are recognized as commodities. So if somebody steals your Bitcoin, right, then it's technically some form of a law that looks at commodities as assets, and then you could charge him if you know him, know the person. So I think in this aspect, in Indonesia is like way ahead of a lot of other countries, because most other countries are trying to create like regulation without even recognizing the asset. So in in policing, right? Because I used to do police for national service. In policing, we always have this triangle, and the triangle is that the public is on top, and then you have the criminals on this side, and then you have the police on this side. So what it says is that the public should be afraid of the criminals, and the criminals should be afraid of the police, and then the police be afraid of the public. So when the order is established, right, then essentially you can constantly enforce whatever you want to do. And there's also another thing is that you cannot legislate, right, what you cannot enforce. So for example, right, maybe one day I'll just say that, hey, like everyone stop online gambling. But you can still use a VPN and gamble online. So what is the purpose of this legislation, if you get what I mean? So and there's one thing that I think a lot of people forget is that international national sovereignty, national boundaries, right, is the ultimate level of ownership in this world. What I'm trying to say is that, for example, right, the country of Indonesia, the country of Malaysia, for example, they are the ultimate source of ownership. There's nothing bigger than a country. So if countries could come together and essentially stop crime, right, I would say that they would have done it 1,000 years ago already. So if you think about it, if they could really come together and say, hey, like there shouldn't be wars and stuff, then they would have already agreed. The reason why I feel that international collaboration on crime is actually practically impossible is because countries have different varying interests actually. So I think that part makes it very difficult. And actually crypto, right, is a very, very small part of this. Like crypto is actually nothing. Like if you were to queue the things that they have to work on together, crypto is probably ranked like 288 or something. Nobody cares. So I think that part makes it even trickier because the government body, the ministries of your country will probably need to use the money for other purposes like defense or economy and stuff like that. So I don't think we have a solution yet. Yeah, much trickier.
Okay, interesting question. So Daniel admits that right now it's very, very tricky regarding regulations in the DeFi or let's say the crypto ecosystem, because right now the size is very small compared to the other issues that globally we're facing. And aside from that, like so many countries as well is like still not recognizing the crypto as an asset. So there's no way, like, how do you criminalize something that's not an asset, or like it's a very, very abstract thing. Okay, we have an interesting Q&A over here. Questions that just pop up by an anonymous attendee. So it says that the DeFi ecosystem now, the majority of the people that are inside of it are hunting for airdrops. Right? They use the platform, the DeFi platform, in order to get those airdrops. So they don't really like use it for the sake of using that platform. Like you're not going to the bank because you want to save your money, but you're hoping for the bank, like let's say, like give you out airdrops, so it give you out more money. Basically, people chasing yields, right? And it is said that when the ecosystem mature, then people will then move on, like actually using the platform itself purely for the sake of using the platform, not for chasing the yields or the airdrops and whatnot. So it's basically trying to ask regarding this mercenary act that are being done by all the users of DeFi. What's your guys' opinions about this? Maybe Wilden, you want to start?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, airdrop is one of the effective marketing when project is started. I mean, it's a way of marketing yang memang populer lah dan menarik untuk newcomers untuk join. But ini agak tricky karena we have to calculate and plan about how many that we airdrop to people, and how beneficial that the platform that we build. I mean, untuk marketing it's okay gitu. Airdrop memang menjadi menarik, tapi yang pentingnya adalah sembari kita airdrop marketing, kita harus fokus on the building the platform, building the business in the Web3. I mean, building projectnya. Supaya memang ketika maturity date atau ya airdropnya itu dibagikan, memang itu udah dipertimbangkan sebagai biaya marketing karena bisnisnya akhirnya berjalan dan you convert the orang-orang yang tadinya airdropper into a real users and you can balance the expense that you already give on the airdrop. Nah, mostly memang akhirnya banyak yang hanya airdrop aja and then the platform itself cannot be used or not solving something and they cannot gain a lot of users. So what happened is the token is being dumped after the airdrop is given. So ya ini lebih ke projectnya harus memainkannya gimana nih? Lebih hati-hati memainkan airdrop aja kayak gitu.
I see. Oke,
Tapi
jadi
nggak bisa dipungkiri memang airdrop ini menjadi salah satu marketing yang lumayan menarik in the
jadi
beginning of the phase.
memang airdrop ini sebuah strategi marketing yang menarik, tapi satu sisi sebagai project mereka harus melihat apakah benar-benar efektif buat mereka secara long term atau enggak gitu ya. Daniel,
Yes.
perhaps you want to add some closing thoughts regarding these questions before I close the session?
Yeah, I will say that Wilden's point out like it's very good because that's exactly like what the project should be doing. I just want to add one point is that if you guys like apply for credit cards wherever you are, right, you also get like essentially a bonus. So for example, you apply for a new card and then they will say, oh, I'm gonna give you $300 worth of rebate if you spend $1,000 or something. This is the same exact thing actually. So what DeFi platforms are trying to do is that they are trying to grab as many users as they can and then try to retain a portion of them, which is what Wilden has said. I would say that this is not, it's not outside of the norm. It's just the best way that the DeFi platforms have found. And me believing that we have a lot of smart people within this space, we will, we will essentially be innovating on top of this actually. So this is just V1 of like aligning users and buying users, but over time, I think we will have better solutions. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Thanks a lot, Daniel. So Daniel was saying that basically it's an effective thing again. And of course, with having like a lot of smart minds in the space, we will of course be going to be innovating on top of this. And we'll be finding new ways, like more retaining ways of retaining the TVL of the protocol, aside from just airdropping or the secondary incentive and all that. Okay. That's it for the panel session today. Terima kasih banyak buat teman-teman semua yang udah datang, udah hadir di sini. Terima kasih banyak juga untuk Daniel, Wilden. Thank you so much for your time, for sharing your thoughts, your opinions on us, like educating us and all that. I have tons of questions I want to ask both of you guys again, but I think the time is limited, so we only have like an hour. So we'll talk again later on. And like buat teman-teman juga di sini, kalau yang penasaran bisa langsung ntar connect cari misalnya Daniel Un atau dari Mas Wildan gitu untuk nanya-nanya lebih lanjut gitu. So that's it for today, guys. We'll be having a lunch break after this, and we'll be back around 1 or 2. We'll be back. I mean, you can check the schedule on our Instagram. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Albi.
Guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.